The Master Chief is without a doubt the icon of the Halo franchise, and he's been with us since day one and over 15 years in the making. But we're all familiar with the expression that all good things must come to an end, and the Master Chief is no exception. Hey guys, it's the Tyrant here, and I know what you're thinking. Come on, Tyrant, you can't possibly be serious. The Chief? Really? And the short answer is, well, yes. Now before I get too far into it, let's take a second and examine the Master Chief himself, as well as his life in general. Currently in the Halo universe, the Master Chief is 46 years old, and that's impressive. Cyborg or not, to be in your late 40s and still be on the front lines of the battlefield is quite a feat. In fact, let's take a look at the average age of active duty personnel in the United States military today. As you can see, the vast majority of those in any branch of the military are between the ages of 18 and 40. After that, the numbers drop significantly. And keep in mind that we aren't just talking about frontliners here, we're talking about everyone. And it's pretty safe to say that most military personnel over the age of 40 who decided to stay enlisted are likely officers who decided to turn their enlistment into a career. These aren't people toting around M16s and parachuting behind enemy lines. Now, I do realize that for every rule there is an exception. In fact, the oldest modern-day frontliner died in Iraq at the age of 60 back in 2009. So I'm well aware that just because most people who stay in the military for decades tend to become officers, there are still those out there who prefer to see combat. And that's not only extremely courageous, but also demonstrates the true power of the human spirit. However, cases like this are considered outliers, not the norm. In fact, folks in the US military can retire as early as the age of 37, putting the Master Chief already 9 years past that, almost a decade. And just look at his face at the end of Halo 4. This is the aged face of a man who's seen too much in his lifetime. In fact, had the story ended with Halo 4, I could have seen the Master Chief easily retiring. He just lost his best friend, and he has a very interesting conversation with Captain Lasky.
Our duty as soldiers is to protect humanity, whatever the cost.
You say that like soldiers and humanity are two different things. I mean, soldiers aren't machines. We're just people. I'll let you have the deck to yourself.
She said that to me once. About being a machine.
His comments on Cortana referring to him as a machine note a state of reflection. You begin to wonder if he might actually take Cortana's words seriously and try to live his life rather than serve as a cog in the UNSC military machine. However, in Halo 5 Guardians, he does the exact opposite of this. Rather than taking leave, he begins going on mission after mission, channeling his grief through action. His mental state at this point in the series is uncertain. In fact, his own teammates had this to say.
I haven't seen Chief press himself like this since we were in boot camp.
He's fine, Fred.
This many missions non-stop isn't fun.
It's at this point we realize that it's not that the Master Chief won't stop, it's that he can't. We're talking about a man here who has been trained for combat since he was 6 years old. In fact, we're not even sure that he really has a last name. At best, he's referred to as John 117. Combat is all the Master Chief knows, and it's hard to picture him settling down and trying to raise a family after a lifetime of war and bloodshed.
Mr. Chief, what do you do?
Please, just call me Chief. I work for the United Nations Space Command. Actually, I mostly do battle with the Covenant forces.
But we also know that he can't go on forever either. In Halo 5, we already get the impression that he isn't necessarily all there. After 8 months of continuous combat, he has a vision of Cortana still being alive. Now, for all he knows, it's just a dream, but that was enough to not only go MIA from the UNSC, but also to talk his fellow Spartans into joining him. This is extremely uncharacteristic for the Master Chief, and it shows signs of weakness. All this points to one conclusion: if the Master Chief can't retire, then really there's only one other option. We can't even really see him simply becoming an officer either. In fact, if you read the book The Fall of Reach by Eric Nyland, it talks about how the Chief felt when he was aboard a UNSC ship during a conflict with the Covenant. Without having boots on the ground and getting directly involved, he felt powerless. This is not a man who can simply sit on the sidelines. He needs to be in the middle of all the action. So you might be thinking, well, sure, that's true, but Microsoft would never risk the fate of Halo by offing the Master Chief. Yet, interestingly enough, we've already been teased by this concept before. In fact, multiple times. For example, at the end of Halo 3 when he's lost in space, the UNSC presumes him KIA and etches his Spartan number in the Human Covenant War Memorial. In 343's take on the universe, this idea repeats. Remember towards the end of Halo 4 when the Master Chief is willing to sacrifice himself for humanity by detonating a nuclear device at point-blank range? Yeah, still not quite sure how he survived that no matter what 343 tells me, but for a few seconds there, we actually thought he'd bitten the bullet. And of course, there's as recently as the Hunt the Truth series leading up to Halo 5 Guardians. Locke is clearly standing over what appears to be a dying Master Chief and is fully prepared to put an end to him. This brings up some interesting points. Seeing as how Cortana sacrificed herself for the Master Chief at the conclusion of Halo 4, I can easily see this coming full circle in Halo 6 by having the Master Chief sacrifice himself to save Cortana from damnation. It's almost poetic when you think about it. The Master Chief has lived his life as a hero, and really the only way to give him the proper send-off would be to have him die a hero's death. And you never know. Perhaps this could be done by way of one of the composers. I mean, sure, supposedly he's immune to be composed, but for all we know, that immunity only pertained to that particular composer. Basically, this would finally allow the Master Chief to become a part of Cortana, like she had always been a part of him. Okay, so now you might be thinking, okay, smartass, so he'll probably die in Halo 6, bringing an end to the Master Chief saga. What next then? Microsoft simply isn't going to stop making Halo games. Heck, that's the entire reason 343 Industries even exists. And you know what? You're right, it is. Which is why we need to bring up Fireteam Osiris. I don't think they were brought into the Halo universe simply to divide Halo 5's campaign. I believe they're there to ultimately become the replacements for the Spartan 2s and carry the torch. And I'm not just talking about games that take place after the Reclaimer saga, I'm also talking about games leading up to it. Take Spartan Buck, for example. There's still a huge chunk of his story that remains untold. I could easily see there being a Halo game that tells the story about how he went from being an ODST to a Spartan. And to be honest, a lot of Halo fans have been asking for a Halo 3 ODST sequel. This would be the perfect opportunity to fill both voids. And Spartan Locke. Aside from the movie Nightfall, we really don't know much about him or his own personal journey. Heck, it's entirely possible for 343 to go the way of Marvel and give these Spartans their very own games leading up to the events of the Reclaimer saga and beyond. And for those of you who are worried that killing off the Master Chief would mean never seeing him again in another Halo game, keep in mind that he has tons of experience leading up to the events of the first Halo. I mean, honestly, I could easily see a prequel Halo game that takes us through many of the events that occurred during the book The Fall of Reach, as well as the events that occurred between Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 in the book First Strike, and of course, there's still many more. So there's still a lot of material out there that can be used that surrounds the Master Chief, while at the same time still giving him a proper send-off. So that is officially why I strongly believe that the end of the Reclaimer saga will also mark the end of the Master Chief story arc in Halo. But I want you to let me know your own personal thoughts on this. Is it finally time to retire the Master Chief and explore other parts of the Halo universe? And if not, what would you rather see as his ultimate fate? Please be sure to let me know your own thoughts, opinions, and ideas in the comments section below, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter and Facebook. Links to my social media sites can be found in the description of this video. And if you like this video, please be sure to share it with your friends, or if you hated it, please feel free to send it someone's way just to piss them off. But if you did in fact like this video and you want to see more, please be sure to hit that subscribe button for more video game related content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on MythicTyrant.com. Thank you so much for watching, guys and gals, and as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.